إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. Today is the last Jummah before school starts on Monday, so inshallah everyone had a good summer, and inshallah we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this semester successful for us academically, in our personal lives, and may He strengthen our deen and our relationships with one another. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. I'll begin this khutbah with a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrates, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Islam began as something strange, and it will go back to being strange. So glad tidings to the strangers. Islam is something strange right now. It's not just in our religious adherence, in praying 5 times a day, in our Quran, in our dhikr, but in our ethics, in our morals, in our relationships, and our values. These things that we carry with us day to day, these are what's strange in today's society. It's strange to hear someone say that they want to avoid credit cards or mortgages for the sake of staying away from interest. It's strange to hear someone say that he doesn't want the free mix for fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's seen as strange for someone to not go to a company happy hour for wanting to stay away from alcohol. It's even strange to see someone pray in public. Over here at UIC, we have a large Muslim community, so it's not very strange to see someone pray, but other universities, other places around Chicago, other places around the world, this is something strange. This strangeness that we see today, this is not something new. This hadith says that Islam began as something strange, and we see this throughout the entire seerah, but specifically in the Meccan portion of the seerah. The trials and the tribulations that the Sahaba faced were unparalleled. Each day, they faced insults, they faced abuse, beatings, they faced torture, and they faced death. When Rasulullah ﷺ took the da'wah to the public stage, the Sahaba needed someone to go out and recite Quran in public for the first time. So the Sahaba are deciding who should go out, and many of the famous names you would expect come up. Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu, Hamza radiallahu anhu. Someone who had the physical stature to protect themselves, like Hamza radiallahu anhu. Or someone who had wealth or a tribe, like Uthman ibn Affan. Someone who made sense, basically. Someone who could protect themselves in case they were going to be viciously mauled, which is what the Sahaba expected. So they're discussing and deciding who should go out when someone raises his hands. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu is someone who does not fit any of the criteria the Sahaba laid out. This is a man who is very unassuming in his stature, to the point where if all of the Sahaba were to stand up and he were to stand with them, you would not be able to see him because of how short he was. He was described as skinny. In a hadith, he is climbing a tree for sticks, and the Sahaba are pointing at him and teasing him for how small his shins are. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked the Sahaba, why are you laughing? And they explained to him why, because Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he was swaying with the wind because of how small his shins were. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, why are you laughing? Don't you know that his shins weigh more on the scales than the entirety of Mount Uhud? So it's a testament to his character and his commitment to Islam. This man, his shins, just his shins, are weighing more than the entirety of Mount Uhud. So not only does Abdullah ibn Mas'ud not have the physical stature, he's also described as being one of the poorest of the Sahaba. And he has no tribe. So on all accounts, by every measure, this man, who has no protection whatsoever, should not be going out and reciting Quran in public. The Sahaba know this and they warn him. But Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he also knows this, and he goes anyway. And he begins to recite Surah Ar-Rahman. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Qur'an, Khalaqa al-Insan, Allamahu al-Bayan, Ash-Shamsu wal-Qamaru bi-Husban, Wan-Najmu wash-Shajaru yasjudan. The Quraysh, at first they're in awe at what they're hearing. They like what they're hearing. But soon they realize that these words that are being recited to them are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they become angry, and they rile up and they beat Abdullah ibn Mas'ud mercilessly, to the point where the Sahaba believed that he would die. Blood was flowing from his face, his eyes and his nose were indistinguishable from one another, and he was unrecognizable from when he left. When he woke up from being unconscious, they beat him to the point of being unconscious. When he woke up from it, the Sahaba said, "We knew this would happen to you." And Abdullah ibn Masud, he replies by saying, "My enemies were light to me. My left eye, my sister eye begs to be beaten as much as my right eye. And I'll go out again tomorrow." This man was a stranger in his society. Sumayya, radiallahu anha, the first martyr of Islam, she's tied to a tree and her husband Yasir is tied to a tree. And Abu Jahl, the Fir'aun of this ummah, is taunting her for placing her love for Rasulullah ﷺ above the love for her husband. And he's saying, "I bet you're waiting for your husband Yasir to die so that you can marry Rasulullah ﷺ." She spits at his feet and she says that he is smaller to her in her eyes than the beetle that she would stomp upon. And Abu Jahl, in his anger, he takes a spear, he runs it through her midsection, and he kills her. This woman was a stranger in her society. Bilal radiallahu anhu, in the hot desert, being tortured, he yells, "Ahad ahad, ahad ahad." He is one, he is one. He's being tortured by Umayy bin Khalaf. And he knows that this phrase is the one that will make him the most angry. And he continues to say it. He continues to say, "Ahad ahad." He is one, he is one. Bilal radiallahu anhu was a stranger in his society. They were all strangers. Why were they strangers? We have to take a step back and ask, why was Islam strange? Islam came as not just a religion with our daily obligations of praying, of reading Quran, of zakat, but it came as a comprehensive way of life. It came as a deen. Islam came as something that challenged the core of society, the foundations of society. The Quraysh, they lived in an unjust system of wealth disparity, blood money, interest, burying your daughters, slavery, and many other things. And Islam came to challenge this at its core. It wasn't just saying, we want to follow the things we want to follow. It was saying that the things that you follow are wrong, they're incorrect, and that Islam is the only religion that should be supreme on this earth. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only God, and only He is worthy of worship. And your systems of injustice that benefit you, they have no place here. Islam was strange, because Islam was a challenge to this root of society. And the carriers of the dawah, the way they became strangers by holding on to this deen like a burning ember. Anas bin Malik narrated, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, "There shall come upon the people a time in which the one who is patient upon his religion will be like the one holding on to a burning ember." We are holding on to a burning ember today. Across the planet. Brothers, if you can move up a little bit. Across the planet. Here at college, the haram is made easy. Going to parties is made easy. Free mixing is made easy. Alcohol is made easy. Zina is made easy. Doing drugs is made easy. Taking interest-bearing loans out just to go to college in the first place, that is made easy. To the point where the halal is made difficult. Staying away from the haram is made difficult. Because everyone around you, your non-Muslim friends, your classmates, they're engaging with these things. Without a proper circle of Muslims around you, it is easy to fall into these traps. This environment around us is one of temptation and filth, but it is so normalized that we might not even see it. We might forget about the akhirah, and we might only want the current benefit that we're going to get right now. With school starting, it's important to remember that we can't compromise our deen. We can't allow ourselves to work within incorrect ideas of Islam just because that's more normal in today's society. We cannot separate our religion from our day-to-day. They're the same way of life. We cannot leave off parts of our religion because of backlash we might get. Something we saw in the past few months was the encampments at Urbana, at Northwestern, and Nepal. There was danger and there was consequence to being part of them, but the students wanted to stand up for our brothers and our sisters, and they did. An extreme example of leaving off parts of our religion is not praying because you have work or you have class. Your schedule should be based around your salah, not the other way around. This is your obligation. A less extreme example of this is going to an area where free mixing is happening. Because it's the norm, right? It's a norm in university to see that. Both men and women, we're commanded to lower our gaze, and we shouldn't be interacting with engaging with these interactions unnecessarily. We carry the torch of Islam everywhere we go, and we are the ambassadors of our religion. So we shouldn't placate it to fit in and to not tell the entirety of Islam in our dawah. The burning ember that we're holding is most difficult right now, when we live in a non-Islamic society and our values outside of our personal worship are not the same as the values of the society that we live in. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The Muslims across the planet are holding on to a burning ember. They're strangers in every society that they live in. We are 100 years out from the abolishment of the Khilafah, 100 years of oppression and of massacre, where this deen that challenged the center of society, the base of society, the core of society, has gone back to being something strange. To the point where Islam is not implemented in its totality anywhere on this planet. Where the Muslims today outnumber the Muslims at the time of Rasulullah by orders of magnitude. When Rasulullah ﷺ left Makkah, there were 100 Muslims with him. Less than 100. We are over 1 billion. And Muslims are still facing abuse every single day. The same insults, the same abuse, the same beatings, the same torture, the same death at the time of Rasulullah ﷺ. Every corner of this planet is oppressed. The man who dies in an internment camp in China, that's your father. The student who dies in an encounter protest in Bangladesh, that's your sister. The man who dies in a hate crime in the UK, that's your brother. The woman who dies holding her child while missiles fly over her head, that in Palestine, that's your mother. Our brothers and our sisters suffer every day. The blood of the Muslims flows in the streets every day. For what? For Islam being strange. For Islam being something that challenges society. You open your Instagram right now, I guarantee you will see a video of another 3-year-old dead. And another 10 videos of another 10 bodies lying on the floor in the hospital bed. Not even in the bed, on the floor. Surgeries on the floor. 10 months of this. Videos every day. Where are the Muslims? Where are the Muslims who will help the Muslims? Where is the system in place that will help the Muslims? Where is the Islam that will help the Muslims? The Islam is implemented as a system. The systems in place right now. The systems in place right now ensure that Islam is not the supreme system on this planet. This leads to Muslim suffering. This leads to Islam without legislation. This leads to legislation without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which means that this legislation is not just. There is no system to help the Muslims because there is no system, because every system wants to keep Islam down. They want to keep the Muslims oppressed. They want to ensure that the death and the oppression of the Muslims that they are facing today across the planet, in Palestine, in China, in Burma, in Sudan, Pakistan, Kashmir, in India, Syria, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, in the UK, over here. We want to ensure all of these places and many more, everywhere that there is a Muslim. We want to ensure that our ummah is stomped in the same way that the Quraysh wanted to stomp Rasulullah ﷺ and the Sahaba. Islam is strange today because there is no system that implements Islam. It ensures that the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is supreme on this planet. It's to the point where Muslims are going to non-Muslims, to kuffar, to ask for help. They're asking people who made these legislations in the first place, who implemented these systems, for help. They ask them to plead and help the Muslims who are suffering in Palestine, knowing full well they will do nothing. They've made this legislation, they've made this system. There is no system to help the Muslims because the systems in place want to keep this deen strange, to try and make us let go of this burning ember that we are holding on to. And it's to the point where it's wrapped around our hands over and over again, to the point where it's searing the inner part of our hand and it's going out the other side. Legislation that is from people that will never lead to justice. The only justice is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most just. And He says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, "Today I have perfected your faith for you, completed my favor upon you, and chosen Islam as your way." This Islam that has been chosen as our way is comprehensive. This Islam is a way of life. It is not our personal religious practice. It's not just our personal religious practice. It is every facet of our lives. So going into university, outside of university, our attitude towards Islam should be that of someone who is a stranger, someone who is still holding on to a burning ember. The Sahaba were treated harshly, and today the Ummah is treated harshly everywhere you go. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free the oppressed Muslims in Palestine, in Kashmir, in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Bangladesh, in the UK. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aid the Muslims in every corner of the world. May He make holding on to Islam easy for us. May He guide the misguided. And may He resurrect us with these strangers on the Day of Judgment. Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ibadullah, Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'idhukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Udhkurullaha yadhkurkum washkuruhu yazidkum wastaghfiruhu yaghfir lakum wattaquhu yaj'al lakum min amrikum makhrajan wa aqimus salat.